Whilst things are heading in a very positive direction, Leeds United have a little bit of a problem that they need to solve in this transfer window. As we all know, Kjell has gone to the wrong side of the Pennines with his newest choice of contract, and Ilham Meslier has left to go to Arsenal, which leaves the club with Alex Cairns, who is unlikely to play any football, and Lucas Perry, who currently has an offer from Torino to go on loan or permanently, depending on various conditions. So Leeds United don't really have a proper, reliable starting goalkeeper, and at the very least they don't have a backup, which means that they have a hell of a lot of work to do. However, they have recently picked up a new target where he is seemingly a ridiculously good player in goal, because I've done a little bit of research on this guy and I've watched a little bit of the league that he plays in over the last season, and I think he could be a brilliant addition to the squad. So, in this video we'll have a little bit of talk about Kjell Scherpen, who is Leeds United's newest target in goal, what he ultimately sort of plays like, what it means for our other pursuits of various players, and ultimately what sort of direction it's going to take us in. But before I'll do that, I'd just massively appreciate you popping a like on the stream and subscribing. That'd be wonderful. Thank you very much. Anyway, diving into it, Kjell Scherpen is a goalkeeper who is, I will open with this as well because it is something that is genuinely a little bit surprising, absolutely massive. The guy is, to just double check, 6'9", 206 centimetres. He is colossal, which is what you want to see from a goalkeeper, but even compared to normal goalkeepers, this guy is an absolute tank of a boy. He is a Dutch citizen, which means that, well, he's Dutch. I don't know where I was going with that one. But he's got a fairly long career ahead of him, being just 26 years old. Last season, he spent his time at Union Saint-Gilloise, or Union SG, a side that play in the Belgian Pro League and are typically towards the top of the Belgian Pro League and were in the Champions League last season. And he joined them only a season ago for approximately €2 million. He left Brighton and Hove Albion to get a little bit more football, or to sort Brighton's sort of finances. Which of the two it was is sort of debated a little bit. But at the end of the day, he played a hell of a lot more football because he was effectively a sort of big fish, a very, very fucking big fish, knowing the size of this guy, in a relatively small pond, and he massively took advantage of that. So, for example, he played a significant amount of Champions League football. Let's have a quick look at the matches that he played in the Champions League, actually. Yeah, there we go. 90 minutes in all of these matches, including playing against Atalanta, against Newcastle, against Inter, Atletico, Marseille, Bayern, and Atalanta again, which is a little bit weird. Why are you playing Atalanta twice? I don't know how that one necessarily works. But that's across 2 seasons because I'm being stupid. But he's played Champions League football several times. He spent a significant amount of time out on loan whilst at Brighton, just bouncing from reasonably strong European club to European club, and he's recently found himself as a sort of core part of Leeds United's interest. However, Leeds United aren't the only side that are reported to be interested in this guy. There is also Ipswich Town. They are having a little bit of a float around him, also looking for a goalkeeper to add to their sort of armoury of goalkeepers, I suppose, and potentially make a move, which means that, again, Leeds United are in a position where we are needing to compete to pick up the players that we want. However, ultimately, if you kind of look at things, comparing us to Ipswich, we're in a fairly solid position. We're a side that was in the Premier League last season, managed to survive, got a fairly deep run in the FA Cup, and will look significantly more solid as an option than Ipswich Town. However, the question for where he will want to go will potentially come down to what sort of role we want to offer. As we found out when it came down to Carl Darlow, we didn't necessarily want to offer Darlow a new contract that would guarantee him the spot as the number 1 goalkeeper, which is part of the reason that he left to go to Manchester United, because if he wasn't going to be number 1 here, you might as well be number 2, where you're going to be earning an obscene amount of money, because Manchester United's wage structure is a joke. On the other hand, going to Ipswich, there is a significantly higher likelihood that you are going to be the first choice goalkeeper, because Ipswich, having just come up, haven't invested a significant amount of cash in Lucas Perry in the past, aren't linked to the likes of James Trafford. And this sort of makes things a little bit complicated, because if he were to be our number 1, that would end the hunt for the likes of James Trafford, but it would also potentially put Lucas Perry out of place, and if Perry wanted to leave anyway, then we'd need to get another goalkeeper on top of that, which means that this guy could be a number 2, he could be a number 1. A bit of a weird one, especially when his value is estimated at something like £7 million. It's varying a little bit. It's sort of €8 million, that sort of range. I've just tried to convert it in my head as a rough sort of estimate. But that's the sort of sum of money that is being valued at, approximately. The amount that we would have to spend is relatively unknown, but Union SG have another goalkeeper lined up as their... If he leaves, then we will move on to this guy. Can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but it was in the tweet by... I will just double check, actually, just to make sure. Because I want to make sure that I'm sort of citing people, you know. There we go. Cited by Ben Heckner, who works for Sky Sports, and they would potentially be looking at Yunus Kersken from Arminia Bielefeld, which is fine enough, I suppose. But this guy ultimately is a very, very high-performing goalkeeper. He outperformed his expected goals against last season by about 4, which isn't colossal, but it means that he's doing better than you would typically expect from a goalkeeper. In addition to that, he's reasonably solid when it comes to playing the ball out with his feet, which is something that you ultimately want if you're going to be transitioning to a more possession-based game, which we are fully sort of intending to, with the idea being that, well, if we're signing better players, we can play a better style of football, which is ultimately what Daniel Farke will want to get back to. And if we are able to have a goalkeeper that can do that, playing the ball out from the back stuff, we can feel a lot more solid with just 2 centre-backs rather than saying, right, okay, your middle centre-back takes the goal kicks and they play it in either direction. Makes things a little bit cleaner at the back of the pitch. I think that sort of €8 million estimated value, however, does make the role a little bit complicated. Lucas Perry will absolutely feel put out of place if we spent €18 million on him and ended up making him the second choice goalkeeper behind a guy that we spent 8 on, which means that you could potentially lead some issues in the camp. At the same time, if someone like a James Trafford pops up as an option, which we would absolutely 100% want because he's a ridiculously promising goalkeeper that will, let's be honest, probably be England's starting goalkeeper at the next World Cup, if I were to guess, you will jump at that opportunity any day of the week. So I think ultimately what we would potentially end up doing is making a move for Kjell Scherpen in the now term, but again, not saying you will be our number 1 goalkeeper, because in the event that Trafford becomes properly available, that would become a lie, because he wouldn't be our number 1 goalkeeper, because, well, promising young homegrown option is sitting right there. Which is why our situation is so weird. We don't know whether we have a senior goalkeeper that is likely to play football going into the next season. Perry, I believe, if I remember right, has already agreed with Torino that he is happy to go there, but we need the goalkeepers to reinforce that, and I reckon we probably need 2 to be safe. So a world in which we get Scherpen and we get Trafford would be ideal, but we don't know if Scherpen ended up going to Belgium in the first place to play more first-team football. He's already left a Premier League side where he wasn't playing. Whether or not he is happy to come back to the Premier League and not play is a very, very big question, and I think one that gets answered in the coming weeks of the window. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. It is always massively appreciated. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. That's always also hugely appreciated. It's one button. It's down here. It's very easy to press. That's what I'll do. Subscribe if you find it very, very funny that Argentina lost and didn't have a single shot in 90 minutes of football. That'll do. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. I will see you later. Toodaloo.